Until the 14th of October, there was just one major country India had the lowest level of diplomatic contact with, Pakistan. Now, India and Pakistan have not had envoys in each other's capitals. It's been 5 years now. The reason? Pakistan's reaction to India's abolition of Article 370 in 2019, in Jammu and Kashmir, of course. Pakistan wants to keep the fires of secessionism burning in Jammu and Kashmir. But yesterday, a second country was added to the list of countries that India has the lowest level of diplomatic contacts with. That club that Pakistan inhabits, it's Canada. 6 Indian diplomats, including High Commissioner Sanjay Verma, were recalled by India from Canada. This came after Canada claimed that agents of the government of India used criminals, referring specifically to the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, to target South Asian community members, specifically pro-Khalistani elements in Canada. While many within Canada are seeing this move by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau done to bolster his falling ratings as Canada's elections come closer, it's also once again brought into focus Canada's openness towards Sikh terrorism. Both Trudeau's father Pierre and now Justin Trudeau himself have not only tolerated Khalistan militancy, but they've also transformed Canada into a safe haven for terror and terror financing. Now, after the Khalistani terrorists blew up Air India Flight 182 40 years ago and killed mostly Canadians, ignorance can no longer be the excuse for the Khalistan movement's lethality. Now, India's Ministry of Home Affairs had designated Satvinder Singh, alias Goldie Blar, a terrorist under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. In 2022, Interpol also issued a red corner notice against this gangster after he claimed in a post that he had killed Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. Now, Goldie Brar is based in Canada's city of Brampton since 2017. And from there, he's been supervising the activities of the Lawrence Bishnoi gang in Canada. The Canadian government has yet to act on this Interpol notice. And it's no wonder then that India has strongly rejected what it calls the preposterous imputations by Canada. The Justin Trudeau administration has not shared a shred of evidence with the government of India despite many requests, government spokesperson in India have said. So what has brought on this latest round of allegations from Canada? On the 9 p.m. show today, we're discussing the big developments from these. The timing of the spat, number one, it comes just days before India participates in 2 major summits, the SCO in Pakistan and the BRICS in Russia. Is this a warning of some kind from the West, or is it purely an India-Canada affair? Number 2, India and Canada ties have hit their lowest under the tenure of one man, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What are Trudeau's vote bank politics and his compulsions? Number 3, the US also seems to have stepped up pressure on the Pannoon case, the alleged assassination attempt made on the life of Khalistani activist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. And in fact, one of the alleged suspects in the plot to kill Pannu has been arrested by Indian authorities. But joining me to discuss the impact of this fall in India-Canada ties are Ambassador K.P. Fabian, former Acting High Commissioner of India to Canada, Dr. Monica Verma, Assistant Professor International Relations, Foreign Affairs expert Robindra Sachdev. And in the studio, I have with me my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul, who's been tracking truth, lies and Trudeau over the past year. Over to you first, Aditya. Tell me what the US State Department posted on its website yesterday, and they quickly took it off.
You know, amid this entire fiasco, the latest standoff between India and Canada, you saw developments thick and fast happening on Sunday, in fact, when a note verbal was issued from Canadian side to India. And this note verbal categorically said that at least 6 people, 6 Indian diplomats, including 2 senior diplomats, were part of their investigation, were persons of interest, and Canada wants India to actually review their diplomatic immunity, completely consider to revoke the diplomatic immunity so that they can be called in for questioning and perhaps arrest as well. India immediately objected to this and said that this was against the Vienna Convention,
Right.
and we will have to immediately recall and withdraw these 6 diplomats.
Right.
Accordingly, we had a statement that was issued by the Indian government.
Yes.
Immediately after that, we had the Canadian side planting a story in the Washington Post,
Right.
which said that as per sources in Canada, it is being said that 6 Indian diplomats have been expelled and not
Right.
withdrawn.
Right.
A very interesting terminology used by the Canadians, which I believe is a face-saving exercise.
Yes.
In a way, they're looking towards the elections next year, and all their statements and comments are more about the domestic, politics
Right.
rather than national security and foreign affairs, which has got botched up and mixed up completely
Yes.
into their domestic interests. At the same time, I received an email from the US State Department,
Right.
which said that an investigation team from the Indian government, which
Yes.
meant the NIA officials
Right.
along with MEA officials, are visiting USA to
Yes.
discuss the case of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu,
Right.
in which a joint investigation mechanism has been formed between India and USA.
This was on Sunday.
This was yesterday. In fact,
On the
yesterday
14th
evening,
of
just
October.
between the India-Canada diplomatic standoff.
Right.
And just when I read this email and I was just about to tweet that,
Right.
I went to that link that was mentioned in the email,
Right.
and I saw that the entire statement has been deleted from the website.
Right.
Now, yes, an Indian investigation team is traveling today,
Right.
but why has the statement been suddenly deleted? Was US trying to poke India, tease India,
Right.
or has India's diplomacy really, tried to prevail over the United States and told them that this cannot be discussed in a public forum? One.
Yes.
Secondly, at 3 a.m., and I was live at that time, at 3 a.m. I saw Justin Trudeau along with his foreign minister and minister for
Yes.
public safety come out in a 45-minute press conference,
Yes.
but not a single shred of evidence that has been shared.
Right,
Now,
right.
India, obviously, as a reciprocal measure, has immediately expelled 6 Canadian diplomats.
Yes.
Now, imagine what is happening here, just for
Right.
comparison's sake, and then you can take it forward, that at a time when Pulwama terror attack happened in 2019,
2019, yes.
India withdrew the High Commissioner, Ajay Bisaria, who was in Pakistan, in Islamabad at that
Right.
time, and the relations between India and Pakistan, the diplomatic ties
Yes.
were actually at the DHC level, which is the CDA level, and there
Right.
were no high commissioners in place. Now, come to 2024.
Yes.
Now is a situation
Yes.
between India and Canada that has been, developing over the last 1 year since G20 last year, and we have no high commissioner, we have no acting high commissioner, we have no deputy high commissioner, we have no first secretary, we have no political counselor, and now the big development also is that India's Consul General in Toronto, Siddharth Nath, who had
Right.
only joined in August 2023, has also been expelled. Now imagine what the Canadians are trying to tell their people,
Right.
that Siddharth Nath, who joined in August in
Yes.
last year, was involved in Hardeep Singh Nijjar case, which happened much earlier. How can an Indian diplomat who joined in August last year
Right.
actually be part of Hardeep Singh Nijjar or other such cases?
It's bizarre. Aditya, thanks for putting this into perspective. This absolute, downgrading of ties between India and Canada. The fact that literally there is no one in charge of our missions in Canada. And I'm going to ask Ambassador Fabian this. Ambassador Fabian, unprecedented low in India-Canada ties. Do you see this as a result of Canada's domestic compulsions? The fact that they had to do what they had to do because of a certain vote bank that they want to appease. Khalistani has been on the Canadian radar for a couple of years now because of these particular reasons. What's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, thank you. It is true that Justin Trudeau's domestic political compulsions, that is, his need for getting support from some seats in the Parliament, in the House of Commons,
Right.
for the survival of his ministry, because it's a minority ministry.
Yes.
That is very much there. But I think we have to look at the big picture,
Right.
because that is only one element. The previous speaker referred to the Washington Post story. Now, I just want to add a point more. Washington Post also says that there was a meeting between Ajit Doval, our National Security Advisor, and Nathalie Drouin, his counterpart in Canada,
Right.
on Saturday in Singapore, and that they had a long discussion And Ajit Doval also said that this Lawrence Bishnoi,
Yes.
he is capable of acting across the national borders and all
Yes.
that. Then what happened was that at the end of the conversation, Ajit Doval said, listen, this conversation never took place. That is a diplomatic way of saying, look, keep this confidential.
Right.
We often do that, not always, but we
Yes.
often do that. But the Washington Post has carried the story. Obviously,
Right.
Canadians have given it,
Right.
which means that Canada has violated,
Right.
a norm of diplomatic practice.
Right. Right.
But even more importantly, I think we should recall that on the 18th of September 2023, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau
Yes.
told the House of Commons that there are, quote, credible allegations, unquote, about the involvement of Indian agents in the
Right.
killing of Niger. A few minutes later, his foreign minister, Joy, she said that the RCMP was conducting an investigation.
Right.
So my question to you, and through you to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, is this.
Right.
If the RCMP was conducting an investigation, could you not have waited for them to conclude the investigation, or at least to give you an interim report?
Yes.
So, in other words, Prime Minister Trudeau believes that it is in his interest to pursue a certain policy with India so that he gets domestic support in Canada. I personally think that he has made a bad judgment, but
Right.
he seems to be convinced about it. But we also have to understand, always look at the big picture.
Right.
The United States, the previous speaker mentioned about some tweet which the United States had put out and then it was deleted.
Deleted, yes.
Well, America and Canada are working together on this.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
you know that in the memorandum given by the Federal Bureau of Investigations to the
Yes.
New York court, there is a reference to Niger.
Right.
You know that about some 10,000 rupees currency notes being passed on.
Yes.
And even a picture. So what
Right.
I'm trying to say that, and the last point I want to make is,
Yes.
while India has said that Canadians are not given any evidence, I have heard on Canadian broadcasting,
Yes.
CBC, their intelligence people saying that the National Security Advisor of Canada and one or two of her colleagues
Yes.
were in Delhi before the G20 conference, and before Prime Minister Trudeau raised it with Prime Minister Modi, they had given evidence. Now, I'm not suggesting that what they are saying is the Bible and we have to believe it.
Right.
But I think we have to look at what other people are saying and try to find out what the big picture is.
What the big picture is indeed. And I'm going to ask Robinder Sachdev this big picture question. Robinder, the fact that India is going to be in two very important multilateral fora in the next couple of hours, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Pakistan, SCO, which begins, that's fronted by Russia and China. And next week, you have the BRICS summit that's taking place, where you're going to have Russia and China again with India and South Africa and many other countries. The timing of all of this, as Ambassador Fabian was saying, that America and Canada are working together on this, does the timing of these allegations against Indian diplomats, the fact that we were allegedly complicit in the murder of Niger and in the United States in the Panoon case as well, does the timing of these incidents suggest there's something bigger at play over here? There are bigger forces at play?
Yes, it does. Timing. And what it suggests to me is a very separate track. And that track is China Gate. I'll come to it now. Exactly date-wise.
Right.
In 2019 or 18 and 21 elections, the Chinese interfered in Canadian elections, causing around 11 MPs of Trudeau's party to win and causing around 8 or 9 of the Conservatives to lose because they wanted Trudeau to win. The Canadian intelligence knew about it but did nothing, and Trudeau was a prime minister. This whole scandal erupted sometime in early 23 when it came to be known that this is what happened. Intelligence had the information, they didn't act, etc. I think it was the Globe and Mail, the Canadian paper, which was going to break the story in the week of September, the very day that Trudeau made the first time allegations against India. One.
Right.
Okay, the story was to come out that week, and apparently the PM office was trying to tell them to hold on, and they said, no, we are going to come out with the story. And I think that was to come out on a Monday, by the way, and on a Sunday again, I think then in September, Trudeau made those allegations. That's one. Second, now, fast forward to now.
Right.
Even this timing I find suspect. You see, tomorrow, 16th October, Trudeau is supposed to testify before this inquiry committee.
Right.
Now, what I'm trying at, so that's a timing coincidence. What Trudeau is doing, to my mind, is creating a distraction and a deflection from his failures on the China front.
Right. Right. Okay.
He failed to prevent Chinese influence and it went in his favor. So he kind of overlooked it. Now, within the country, it's a hot it's a scandal.
Right.
Okay, it's like you betrayed your own democracy. That's why I'm saying it's China Gate, just like Watergate.
Yes, absolutely.
Nixon played with American democracy, Trudeau played with Canadian democracy from a Chinese angle, right? So therefore, to deflect the attention and to create a perception. So going back to the first time he announced September last year, he wanted to create a perception that I am looking after the national interests of Canada, and I'm very much aware, and we are going to aggressively pursue anyone who dares to interfere in our internal affairs. And he picked India for that, to deflect from that big picture of the Canadian influence. Okay. And now, as that inquiry is pending, actually that inquiry, it would be great to see the result, is due to come out with this report on December 31.
Right.
So as that inquiry is proceeding, and of course, given all his other political troubles and his approval ratings of the economy and all, etc., to my mind, there are two tracks to this story. One is definitely vote bank games, right? No doubt, sympathizers and all. But I see another parallel track, which is the China scandal, China Gate, which is, you mentioned the word compulsion.
Right.
So it's become his compulsion to save himself and his reputation as a leader who did not sell out his country's interests or was caught sleeping, let's put it charitably.
Right.
That he was caught sleeping
indeed.
when China was...
Absolutely. Thank you, Robinder Sachdev. Dr. Monica Verma, you've just heard our panelists talk about this. It all boils down really to one man's compulsions, Justin Trudeau, and the fact that you've been speaking about his vote bank politics over the last 1 year, why he needs to shelter these separatist elements in Canada, which has the largest Sikh population after India. And now we've heard another version, that is the China Gate conspiracy, as Robinder Sachdev has called it, the fact that he needs to cover up on that front where he was caught sleeping. Is it really one man determined to torch India-Canada relations for his own personal agendas, to build up his political career? And given the fact that, as Aditya just pointed out, India-Canada relations, diplomatic ties are lower than India-Pakistan ties. Dr. Monica Verma.
I think the last time such a bad patch in India-Canada relations came was in the 1970s, when not Justin Trudeau, but his father was in power.
Yes.
And at that time, there were two major reasons. First of all, Canada was a great support to us in our nuclear program, but then there was a nuclear test that we conducted in 1974, and that kind of, erupted, and that led to a serious sort of, a lot of, feet followed. That his father took action against India and he suspended the cooperation and so on. But the real, what we can call the real trouble came when just his father did not extradite someone who was responsible for spreading Khalistani terror in India. So the Indira Gandhi government, just like today we are seeing the Modi government is talking about an external hand and how
Yes.
countries being destabilized by foreign forces. In the same manner, Indira Gandhi also pointed out that Khalistani elements are getting a safe territory, they are getting a refuge in Canada. But
Yes.
then the Trudeau senior, he also had played a similar role rather than sending back that terrorist who later was responsible for the hijack and so on. This thing
For the
was
bombing
done in
of
Canada.
Kanishka,
Where,
yes,
yes,
for the bombing of
absolutely,
Kanishka in
absolutely.
1984. Yes.
So
85.
Something, and the same guy, in fact, just look at the same guy who was being asked by India that hand it over to us and we take care of him. His father refused, and
Yes.
from then onwards, I think Khalistani issue has become a big trouble.
Yes,
in
it
Canada.
has
In
indeed,
fact,
Dr.
no
Verma.
matter-
Thank you. And the fact that what you've just mentioned, brings this quote to mind, the fact that history doesn't repeat itself, it sometimes rhymes. And in this case, it's not only rhyming, but it's also repeating with the same, two members of one political family who are at the helm. But Aditya, what's the way forward now? What is India going to do? What are your sources telling you in the MEA?
Sandeep, as of now, the status quo will continue.
Right.
What I imagine, because this is not just about foreign policy or national security, just like our panelists, including Mr. Fabian mentioned, we have to see this in the context of the domestic politics in Canada.
Right.
There are two things that are happening simultaneously. One, NDP almost has withdrawn support from the Justin Trudeau government.
Yes.
And every passing day has been putting considerable pressure.
Right.
The NDP has demanded action against the Indian government. In fact, yesterday, if you heard that 45-minute press briefing, a reporter
Yes.
asked the foreign minister that what are you going to do apart from the diplomatic steps that you have taken? NDP leader has asked you to put sanctions on India. Is that a step that you will take? The foreign minister did not
Yes.
refuse it. The
Right.
foreign minister said everything is on the
All
table.
options are on the table.
Now
Yes,
imagine
absolutely.
this is a
Yes.
Canada with a sinking economy right
Yes.
now. This is a Canada where gangland violence is abrupt, is happening continuously all across. It's a Canada where refugees are coming in thousands every passing year. On the entire Israel and Iran conflict that's happening over the last 1 year, we've seen a lot of attacks happening against the Jews, against the Jewish places of worship. We've also seen a record number
Right.
of Christian churches being gutted and burned down
Yes.
in the last few years. So this is a Canada that Justin Trudeau has been ruling. So to your question as to what to expect, one red line for India is separatism and terrorism.
Yes.
India is not going to tolerate any kind of separatism, terrorism, either in the Indian states of Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab or any kind of foreign origin which directly attacks India. You know what Canada has done? One, cross the red line by
Yes.
supporting terrorism and separatism, looking the other way when India asked to act against the fugitives and hand them over. Secondly, in the Washington Post story that was planted by the Canadian intelligence,
Yes.
it was clearly an attack on India's Home Minister Amit Shah and the
Yes.
National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Democracies do not preach about rules-based order.
Right.
They act about rules-based order. They believe in the principles of democracy and diplomacy. In
Right.
this case, Canada has completely violated that. We now look towards the elections that will happen in
Right.
Canada next year, Sandeep.
Yes.
Till that time, the status quo will remain. And if what the approval ratings are saying, then
Yes.
Pierre Poilievre is set to become the next Prime Minister, and it's only under his command that we will have normalization of the ties yet again between India and
So,
Canada. Next 1 year
Right.
seems to be a very tough road ahead.
A tough road ahead indeed. And Aditya, as you mentioned, a number of red lines have been crossed by Canada. And of course, as Ambassador Fabian was saying, that Canada has violated several rules of diplomatic practice by revealing confidential meetings with the NSA, Mr. Doval, if these meetings indeed did take place. But Ambassador Fabian, how much worse can India-Canada relations become? As Aditya was saying, that you have an election in Canada next year. It's a very, very fiercely contested election because it's literally Justin Trudeau fighting for his political survival. You have his rival way ahead of him in the approval ratings. Will Justin Trudeau now use the India bogey? Will he flag this India bogey to enhance his own political standing within Canada?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to make a point. There was mention about the China Gate,
Yes.
but it is the case that the committee which went into the matter has concluded that both China and India have been interfering in Canada's internal affairs. And as you said, as the previous speaker said, Prime Minister Trudeau is going to sort of appear, give some testimony in that context. So somehow they have managed to bracket India and China together in terms of foreign interference. Now, coming to your question proper, I do not believe that by imposing economic sanctions on India, Prime Minister Trudeau is going to gain any political advantage. He has already lost a lot considerable by having this sort of relationship or crisis with India. And so I don't think that will happen. But we should also keep in mind that he has painted himself in a corner. So as the previous speaker said, relations with India, between India and Canada, we can hope for better relations only after the election, which is due 2025 autumn, but it is possible that that election might be advanced.
Absolutely. We can hope for better relations only in the case, Aditya, as our panelist was saying, in the case of regime change in Canada, as is being said in Israel as well, with the hostility that they are at the receiving end of from Iran. But it's bizarre, this spat that Canada has chosen to take on with India. It's two countries literally on two sides of the globe, 10,000 kilometers away. That's how far Canada is from India. And they have, as Ambassador Fabian said, chosen to paint themselves into a corner in this one. What are the next steps that the MEA is prepared to take on this?
Well, one thing that I can tell you which will surprise you and not surprise you at the same time is that, India's focus has been on Pakistan for decades together. In 2014, like I was telling some journalists who are visiting Pakistan right now, thinking that that would be the top story of the day. And it turned out to be Canada. And in fact, this is not the India of 2014. India of 2014 meant that Nawaz Sharif was in the Taj Mahal Hotel in Delhi. And, we were hoping for good ties and some diplomacy and some talks actually happening and some kind of soft power working out. This is India of 2024, where Pakistan has been isolated completely. Pakistan is on the margins and Pakistan is desperate for some attention. Now imagine that Canada has stooped to that level for India. India is willing to compromise on its relations with Canada if it comes to terrorism and separatism, because there is no compromise with national security, with terrorism, or with any kind of separatism. Today, when I had some talks with at least two Indian diplomats, they said we are completely occupied with Canada right now. Our entire attention and focus is on Canada. That means they are not only prepared to tackle what is happening today, they are preempting what Canada could do tomorrow, and then in that escalation ladder, be prepared for it. They are prepared for anything. I also believe what Ambassador Fabian also mentioned, that economic sanctions certainly will not be the way forward for Canada. It will only hurt them economically and otherwise, and for the people with the way things are right now in Canada. But India is willing to cancel OCI cards of people who are engaged with Khalistani groups or trying to intimidate the Indian diplomats over the last couple of years. India is prepared to act against any kind of air service, direct air service that is taking place between India and Canada, and additional measures as well. So in that escalation ladder, we are very much prepared. And as I said, till Canada shows willingness to act against the Khalistani terrorists, India is certainly not going to succumb under any kind of pressure or any kind of these threats of sanctions, etc., coming in from Canada.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Aditya, for putting that into perspective. The fact that Canada seems to be the new Pakistan, as you just heard it from our panelists. And the fact is that India of 2024 is not the India of 2014. India is fully prepared this time around to handle all the steps on the escalation ladder as they come. And this seems to be a long and patient wait before things can, hopefully improve with a change of regime in Canada. Because as we've all figured that it is one man's mission to literally scorch the earth of India-Canada ties, and that is Justin Trudeau. And it's only if Justin Trudeau moves out as Prime Minister, we can see better times between India and Canada, and hopefully Canada will not be the new Pakistan, as we've just been hearing from our panelists. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Dr. Monica Verma, Robindra Sachdev, Ambassador Fabian, and of course my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul here in the studio with me.